The fact that budgets don't work is something I learned in middle school. Today, I'm going to tell you that story and what I do differently to increase my savings, to control my cash flow, and create a financial future that I wouldn't have known was possible back in middle school. If you are in the budget struggle right now, this episode is made for you. If you're currently doing budgeting in a way that is not very joy-filling and maybe even you hate it, this episode is also for you. And if you're doing budgeting in a way that you love, that brings you lots of joy, that you don't think there's any way that you could improve upon it, go ahead and skip this episode. This, honestly, if you're doing everything great, you probably know more than I do. Hello and welcome to the Wealth Wisdom Financial Podcast. This is a place where we believe when conventional financial thinking doesn't get you where you want to go, you need wealth wisdom. If you're just joining us, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Watch it on YouTube. Be sure to hit the bell too so you get notifications. Hit the like on this video. The comments are open. For our loyal listeners, you'll notice I'm only half of the team today. You're getting just me because in our relationship, my husband and I, the other host of the show, I'm the budget nerd. I'm the financial analytical person. I'm like the Spock and he's the Captain Kirk, which we'll come back to that reference later on in the show. If you caught last week's episode, we shared our journey of being big in yourself revolutionaries and what that's been like over the last 10 years. It's not required to listen to that episode first before you participate in this one, but I am going to make a reference to that last episode later on that I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on. We do all that detail in the last episode. So I want to give you a heads up about that. We shared our story with being big in yourself revolutionaries in that last episode. Today, we're going to talk about how that journey has actually transformed how we look at budgeting, what budgeting looks like. So we're going to talk about the before, the after, all of that. And how things have changed over time. So let me go back to the middle school thing. So I was in middle school and I remember my parents were fighting about money, and I put two and two together to realize that my mom had actually gotten into a little bit of credit card debt. My dad was not happy with that and they were fighting about it. So I didn't want them to fight anymore. So I sat my mom down at the kitchen table. She was the one that like paid the bills and things like that. And so we sat down at the kitchen table and we figured out how to get out of this mess. Almost intuitively, I knew we'd look at what she had in the bank at that moment and we'd plot out, here's what that money needs to do before her next paycheck would come in. And then we could then do, these things afterward, kind of prioritizing, seeing what we wanted to do. And that was almost intuitive to do it that way rather than any other way. So remember that, and we'll come back to it. So we didn't actually like make a budget of like, Mom, you can only spend this on groceries, those kind of things. That wouldn't have worked for her. Part of why she had gotten to the credit card debt already was because having a set, say, Christmas budget, she was out shopping. She didn't think about the budget. She thought about the gifts she wanted to buy for people and that kind of thing, the things that would bring them joy. Thinking of like a restrictive budget wasn't working for her. It wasn't going to work her to get out of that either. So then fast forward, I'm in college. I'm on my own financially, and I've got to figure things out. I literally had a ledger book, like a black book that had, columns in it where I would put every single thing that went through my hands. I had a debit card by then, so I didn't have like a checkbook register, but the ledger book was similar. And I'd write down every single in and out. And I did that on a regular basis, mostly daily, like at the end of the day, here's what came in and went out. Of course, during midterms or finals, it wouldn't happen every day. But then I could log into my account, my bank account, and see what had happened. And that really helped me be cognizant of how much money I had. When there was low money, I'd be more frugal in terms of what I might eat for lunch that day. And other times when there was more money, maybe I would get a $5 pizza from the mass commercialized pizza shop across the street and eat on it for 3 or 4 days. That was like what college was, right? We all been there, or a lot of us have been there. But I think writing it down was almost therapeutic at times. And when there was all kinds of stress, that was a meditative kind of thing I could come back to. And of course, this is before smartphones, so I probably do it differently today, but that's how I did it then. And then after Brandon and I got married, of course, the number of transactions went up. So I decided to go from something paper-based to something electronic. But then like there was the whole, you had to sit down we had a desktop computer, you just sit down at the desktop computer, turn it on, log into all the things, make it updated. And that didn't work. We were busy people. We had lots of volunteering, and we had our regular jobs, and we were thinking about, all the other things, social life. And so that kind of fell by the wayside. So we just decided, let's focus on what we can control. We have our rent. We know our bills are going to be what our bills are going to be for the utilities and such. Let's control at least groceries, dining out, and other spending. And we just try to spend as little as possible. But then, of course, that's frustrating because then you feel guilty anytime you spend something. And so it worked to a point. Like, we did build an emergency fund. We would round up on our debt. But I feel like that's where most people are like, that's it. That's what we're going to do. It's to do anything more than that, we're too busy for it. And that's where we were. And then we chose to start a business. So we got a little more serious about things. And of course, with the business, we have to track everything that's going in with that, QuickBooks and all of that. But we just kind of humdrummed along on the personal side. And we started the business. We didn't want to go into a lot of debt to get started. But of course, when you're starting a business, you do have to have somebody go into it. And we did put some personal money into it from credit cards. Wouldn't recommend doing that, but that's honestly what we did. Now, we shared the story of when all this changes in the last episode, with deciding we wanted to commit a set amount to our financial future, and how that helped us focus more on different priorities, including the first thing we did was shift our focus to growing our income rather than just limiting our expenses. That's a whole mindset shift there that budgeting doesn't really talk about, growing your income. It's mostly budgeting typically is focused on expenses and restricting them. And that's part of why I don't think it works, because it leaves us out that growing your income side of things. But we knew we couldn't keep living on $1, $2 from the tip jar per hour that we worked, and actually have a good financial future where we're saving regularly in case of emergencies or to accomplish goals like buying our first home or those kind of things. So that becoming Big and Yourself revolutionaries and starting our first properly designed whole life insurance policies actually gave us that kick in the pants to figure out greater profitability in our business, adding other income streams. I literally took another full-time job with a nonprofit partner at that point that I'd been volunteering with for a while. So that happened in 2013. About 6 months later or so was when we were introduced to this tool that's going to sound like a budgeting tool. It's a software. They use 4 simple rules for how to use their software to the best of its ability. And they call it You Need a Budget, or YNAB for short. But I think they actually misnamed it. It's not budgeting. It's not that restrictive, forecasting, looking back at the last year. None of that is included in it. I love YNAB because of their 4 rules. In fact, I think part of why I liked it so much, it was rule number 1 was what I'd intuitively done in middle school to help my mom. It's to give every dollar a job. And YNAB, you're not looking back at the past year. You're not looking forward at the future year. You're looking at what's literally in my possession right now, either, in cash or in a bank account or wherever. And what do I need it to do for me until the next influx? And that's as far as you have to think. And that is amazing for rule number 1. There's no forecasting. Take the money you have and you assign it jobs, categories, things for it to do. Then rule number 2 is to roll with the punches. So when you do overspend in a category, which all of us do, rather than the guilt and the shame, you just say, okay, well, let me move the money from somewhere else to cover that. And what am I going to do? It puts the power back into your hands. And then rule number 3 is embrace your true expenses. This is really helpful to take things like the Christmas budget, the Christmas spending that you want to do, and break it into monthly amounts that you can save up throughout the year before Christmas. I use Christmas as the example because that's literally the one that my middle school self would use. But it can be used for all kinds of things. My favorite current example is we know that Brandon and I need glasses, or for me, contact lenses on a regular basis. And Brandon's eyesight is actually pretty bad. So his are way more expensive, his glasses, than like the typical glasses. So I know I need to be setting aside money to be able to buy those glasses. That's actually bigger than our Christmas budget on most cases. So to do that, it gives me such peace of mind that that's not going to throw off that month when he needs new glasses, right? And then rule number 4 is to age your money. Naturally, as you're following rule number 3, you're spending older and older money. So this one kind of takes care of itself, and for the most part. And it's really how you break the paycheck to paycheck cycle. YNAB has all kinds of great resources about those 4 rules. They've got trainings, workshops they offer for free. If you want to go deeper there, I highly recommend checking out their website and researching some more. We'll put a link in the show notes to our affiliate link where you get a month free and we get a month free if you decide to use them. Yay. Okay. But we've been the only reason I'm talking about them is because we've been using them since 2014, and every single transaction in our lives has gone into YNAB since 2014, every single one. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I got to go back to 2016. In 2016, there was something that transformed how we use YNAB. When you first open up YNAB, it has like a set like sample budget that you can start with, or sample layout of your different buckets that you might put money in. What I learned in 2016 transformed how I use those categories, is what they call them. That's when I heard Mike Michalowicz on a podcast talking about Profit First. Profit First is a business cash flow management system that Mike created, and he authored the book Profit First. But that reminded me that doing the allocations in a certain order makes a big difference. The things you do first happen, things you do last often get forgotten. So I started to think, how could I reorder my allocations? How could I reorder these categories to be more aligned with what I find as a priority? And so what I'm going to show you today is a copy of my YNAB budget without any numbers in there. And I changed a couple categories. I hid them because they're a little personal. And I changed a couple names of them, but it's mostly 90% exactly what we do. So I'm going to share my screen and walk you through that, because this, I think, will give you a really good picture of what is not budgeting to me. Okay, here we go. So we've got at the very beginning, when the money comes in, it's up here in, right now it says all money assigned, but it'll say to be assigned when there's money there. And then I go through, and first we give, we tithe, we set a little bit above the tithe for charitable expenses. Then what comes next after giving is savings goals. And I have things that I am saving for that are more, some short-term, like property taxes and home insurance. Don't escrow, I actually save myself and pay those. Don't recommend that for everybody, but that works really well for us. And then some more short-term, just to make sure we've got money for things like the eyeglasses. And then we call it honest banking, medium-term spending, and life insurance is really our long-term savings, like for retirement, for legacy, that kind of thing. So I covered those first, giving and my savings goals. And then I go to our monthly bills, and then our everyday expenses, like groceries and restaurants, and then some more short-term funds, and fill those in. I use TBD for things that I'm not ready to assign yet. And then I've got some other categories down here of how we're trying to grow our wealth. But after I've assigned all those other categories, if I have anything left over, it goes there and reminds me, like, this is what I'm excited to do. And if I'm able to control myself, have maybe a little bit of discipline in those other categories, I can build up a bucket here that I can actually use to grow my wealth, whether it be my professional development or an experience I want to have, or an upgrade to our home that actually help our resale value. It could be a number of things. But when I see where that extra money is going to go, that motivates me to be excited about that, and to maybe have water at the restaurant, or whatever example you want to use for what that looks like. Now, some of these categories have very specific purposes, but one thing we do with like monthly bills is these categories all have a number after it, because I know like my mortgage is the same every month. My cable and internet's the same every month. Electricity, it's within, and gas, right? There's within certain parameters. So we put like numbers after these. Same with like groceries. Here's the regular amount we're going to do, with the idea that if we ever overspend in that, we've got these places down here that we're putting our extra into that we can just move up to cover those things. And same with maybe some of these short-term goals. If we overspend on something, like maybe let's say we have a big health expense that comes up, we can say, well, we'll just spend a little bit less for Christmas and we can move that money up to cover it. It really puts it into perspective there. So I'm going to come back and talk about some of what we do here, things you might notice, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and share those to you face to face. Okay, now is YNAB for everyone? Maybe not. There's different personalities and quirks, especially when it comes to money. What's going to work for one person might not work for another. The system works really well for Brandon and me because I'm more analytical. I love tracking things. I'm going to put things in there, make sure it's up to date. If something happens to me and Brandon's taking this over, he might need to do it differently. He might use fewer categories, for example. But what I love about YNAB's system is it's customizable. You can make it fit your personality, your quirks, what works for you. Which brings me to what I really want to encourage you with this episode. Don't take on someone else's way of budgeting, especially if it causes you stress or if you hate it. Also, don't put your pressure on yourself to do this perfectly. The reason I want to share my story is because you see, I tried a lot of different ways until I found something that worked for me. And we also gave ourselves permission to allow it to change over time. And I've continued to even move things around in YNAB, play around with it, make it kind of a sandbox that I can build my own sandcastles in, but then destroy them if they're not working for me. And that's part of why I love to call it cash flow management rather than budgeting. Sure, budget has a lot of connotations to it of restriction and not freedom. Whereas you'll actually notice if you go back to when I was sharing my screen, instead of calling this my budget, I call it my cash flow control room. And that reminds me that it's about making progress, not perfection, that I can try one thing and then control it that another way. It's kind of like my financial life is a spaceship and we're in this control room. I'm going to put lots of work, lots of intentionality into it. But the important thing is that I want to move forward. I want to keep moving my spaceship, not just hover in one spot. And for some people, that could be as simple as logging into your bank account more often to check your balance. Or, or maybe it's thinking about money for 1 minute or 10 minutes. Or if you use the Pomodoro method, make one of your 25-minute Pomodoros related to your financial life. Maybe it's trying out a new software or a software for the first time. Perhaps it's perhaps it's going through one of YNAB's free workshops that they offer. Maybe it's readjusting your categories and what order they're in. Keep playing around with your control room and the sandbox that's there is really helpful. I'm kind of mixing metaphors, but the idea of it being a control room and like on a spaceship is probably the most helpful. My money is my crew, and I'm telling them what to do to make my financial life go where I want it to go. And Brandon can bring his Captain Kirk energy into it and feel his way with how he's going to move the controls. And I can bring my Spock logic to it, and we can find a way to move forward together. We decide where the financial ship is going, and we find those compromises by digging into the real numbers that are there. And to me, that's not budgeting. That's not restricting ourselves. It's not thinking of how do we limit what we're doing. Instead, it's expansive. It's empowering. It's joy-filling. It's actually kind of fun sometimes. Going back to the sandbox, it's like a kid playing in a sandbox. So we can experiment, try different things. So I invite you to try that on for size, see how that analogy works for you. And then also, I have a very personal invitation for you. We have this community called Wealth Wisdom Financial Community, where twice a month we invite the members to get together to play in that sandbox together. kind of separately, right? We're each working on our own sandcastles, but we're doing it alongside one another to provide that encouragement, that empowerment, to talk about things, to share the insights that we're getting as we go. And actually, if you join right now, you can get an 80% discount on membership to Wealth Wisdom Financial Community and be able to attend those twice a month get-togethers, as well as all the other value that we provide in the community. Now, part of why we're offering this discount is because we actually launched Wealth Wisdom Financial Community 2.0 on January 1st. And that also means that this special 2.0 promo of this 80% discount is going to be going away. It actually goes away at the end of Sunday, January 28th. So if you're catching this episode right when it comes out, you can still access that 80% discount, get into the community, start playing in your sandbox alongside other folks, and going for progress on your financial journey. I'm going to put a link to that description in the show notes. So it's really simple. You just click the link, you create an account, and then you put in your details and move forward. There's no coupon code or anything, just the special link. So click it, join today. Again, this offer expires. It's part of this 2.0 relaunch of the community, and we would love to see you in there. We also, within the community, have a what we call a quest. It's like a specific journey where we talk about YNAB a lot more. It's called Manage Cash Flow Like a Millionaire. And we go through very specifically how we set up that budget that you saw today, that cash flow control room for our regular ongoing expenses, how we also set up a control room for our medium and long-term savings. All that money that you saw at the top doesn't just stay in a bank account, it goes somewhere else. And how do we control that and monitor what it's going on there? And then we also have one set up for our business. And so we go through and manage cash flow like a millionaire, how we use YNAB in all three of those instances. We'll put a link to where you can get that. I think now there's 3 different links in the show notes. Be sure you check out all of them. Sign up for YNAB, sign up for the community, and check out that online quest to help you get started faster, kind of a rocket booster for your financial journey spaceship thing. Okay, that's it for today. A little sneak peek. I mentioned Profit First in today's episode. Next episode, we're going to talk about how Profit First has transformed everything for us. We talked about banking yourself, we talked about YNAB, and then we've mentioned Profit First with both of those. We're going to talk about what that looks like with our own journey of dabbling with Profit First, to being full adopters, to being Profit First professionals, and how we're continuing to evolve our journey with it. So hit subscribe. Don't miss that next episode. We hope that you live long and profit. The topics presented in this podcast are for general information only and not for the purposes of providing legal, accounting, or investment advice. On such matters, please consult a professional who knows your specific situation.